Hi there, and welcome to the Dokeys crochet tutorial for creating your very own koala. In this tutorial, we will go step by step on how to create him. To create your koala, the stitches you will need to know are a magic ring alternative, single crochet, increase, decrease, chain, and color changing. If you're new to any of these, you can find tutorials for them on this page or on the tutorials page of our website. Alright, if you're using the Dokeys crochet kit, you should receive our 3 colors of our chunky chenille yarn, some stuffing for your koala, safety eyes, a yarn needle, stitch markers. Additionally, you will need some scissors, but you will also be given a crochet hook. Alright, if you need to pause or rewind the video at any time, feel free to do so. And if you make any adjustments to your koala, I would love to see them, so don't forget to tag us at Dokeys crochet, and let's get started. Alright, we're going to start the koala head by making our magic ring alternative. And then in that second chain from our hook, we are going to work 12 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Alright, go ahead and add that stitch marker. Alright, round number 2, we're going to be doing a single crochet and then an increase, and we're going to repeat that 6 times. So, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase. Alright, go ahead and flip the piece. Alright, round number 3, we're doing 2 single crochets and an increase, repeating it 6 times. So 1, 2, increase, 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 1, 2, increase. Right, move that stitch marker. All right, round number 4, we're doing 3 single crochets and an increase. 1, 2, 3, 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 increase. Right. Round number 5 is 4 single crochets and an increase. We're repeating it 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, increase. 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 Move the stitch marker. Alright, round number 6, we're doing 36 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. At this point you might see your piece start to curl. Just make sure that you flip it the right way. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Move that stitch marker. Okay. And then round 7, we are also doing 36 single crochets. Move the stitch marker up. Okay, round 8, 36 single crochets. Move the stitch marker up. Right, round 9, we're doing 4 single crochets and then a decrease, and we're repeating it 6 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, decrease, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, decrease. Right, move the stitch marker up. Round 10 is 3 single crochets and a decrease, repeated 6 times. 1, 2, 3, decrease, 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 1, 2, 3, decrease. Move that stitch marker. Alright, round 11. We're doing 2 single crochets and a decrease, and we're repeating it 6 times. 1, 2, decrease, 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 1, 2, decrease. Right, move that stitch marker up. Alright, round number 12, we're doing a single crochet and a decrease, and we're repeating it 6 times. So single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease. All right. Now moving on, the head and the body are no-sew, so we're gonna just continue on to the body, but if you want to, you can close off the head however you want and make the body separately, but we're just gonna make it one thing. So to start on the body, we're gonna do the opposite of what we just did, is we're doing a single and an increase 6 times for round 13. So single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase. Okay, move that stitch marker up and grab your vanilla cream white. We're gonna start on the color changes with this round. Round 14, we're gonna start with 6 single crochets with the gray. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then on the 6th one is when we're gonna color change. So you're gonna pull up a loop with the gray, but then pull your white through the 2 loops to color change. And then just to secure the white in there, I like to just tie it to the gray, not like super tight, but just enough that it's not gonna unravel right there. Okay, and then we're gonna do 6 single crochets with the white. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and again color changing on the 6th, so pull up a white loop, pull through with the gray, and then to finish the round you're going to do 6 single crochets with the gray. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tuck those in there. Alright, move that stitch marker up. Okay, round 15, we're starting with the gray. We're doing 2 single crochets and an increase with the gray. So 1, 2, increase, and then 1, 2, and then for the increase color change, the first single crochet is gray, and then the second one is when we're gonna do the color change. Okay, and then with the white, we're gonna do the same thing, 2 single crochets and an increase, repeating it twice. So 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase. Same way we color changed with the first one. All right. And then do the same thing again, 2 single crochets and an increase, repeating it twice with the gray. 2, increase, 1, 2, increase. All right, move that stitch marker. All right, round 16, we're going to start with our gray, and we're going to start with 8 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, color change on the 8th. And then 8 single crochets with the white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, color change on the 8th. And then 8 single crochets with the gray. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right, move that stitch marker. Okay, round 17. We're going to start with the gray, and we're doing 3 single crochets and an increase, repeated twice. So 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3. Same way we've color changed on the increase before. First one is normal, second one is the color change. All right, and then with the white, we're gonna work the same thing, 3 single crochets and an increase, repeated twice. So 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3, same way we color change. Alright, and then 3 single crochets and an increase repeated twice. twice with the gray. 2, 3, increase. 1, 2, 3, increase. Okay, move that stitch marker up. All right, round 18. We're going to do 10 single crochets with the gray to start. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, color change on the 10th. 10 single crochets with the white. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, color change on the 10th. 10 single crochets with the gray. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Move that stitch marker. All right. And then we're doing the same thing for rounds 19 and 20. So we're going to start round 19 with 10 single crochets in the gray. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, color change on the 10th. 10 single crochets with the white. 1, 2, 3, oops. Sometimes when you're doing the color change, it gets tied around and just tangled up a little bit, so watch out for that. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, color change on the 10th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Move that stitch marker. Now we're going to do round 20. So we're going to start with our 10 single crochets with the gray. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, color change on the 10th. 10 single crochets with the white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, color change on the 10th. And then finish the round with 10 single crochets in the gray. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Move that stitch marker. All right, now before I continue on to round 21, we're gonna go ahead and cut the white yarn off so that we can untangle it from the gray. And then, like I normally do, you don't have to do this obviously, but I just like to tie a little knot. And then we're gonna go ahead, because we're gonna start decreasing the body now. So we're gonna go ahead and add the safety eyes and stuffing to the koala. So as far as the eyes go, we're gonna put them fairly far apart because we're gonna be putting the nose and mouth right in between. So I usually like to go kind of right in the middle of the head, so between rounds like 6 and 7. And then I kind of base it off of the edges of the belly. And I try and get about 7 or 8 stitches visible in between. Something like that. So just kind of use the belly as a guide to it. And then make sure that you like the placement. You can move them further apart, closer together, whatever you want. And then make sure you add the backing onto the eyes. And you hear it click. Or feel it click. Oops, we lost an eye. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and stuff the head of our koala, just so that we're not trying to stuff it more. So to start stuffing, you're just gonna obviously grab it and just stick it in. And then as you're stuffing, it's kind of hard because we have so much of the body done, but try and stick your fingers into the middle and push the stuffing out to the edges. That way it fills everything in nicely, a little more evenly as well. And then just push it to the edges. All right. Once you get all the stuffing in there, you can obviously see the shape a little bit more and decide if you want to take some out. But we're gonna go ahead and finish up the koala body. So round 21, we're doing 3 single crochets and a decrease, repeating it 6 times. So 1, 2, 3, decrease, 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 1, 2, 3, decrease. Okay, move that stitch marker. Round 22, we're doing 2 single crochets and a decrease, repeating it 6 times. 1, 2, decrease. 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 All right, move the stitch marker. At this point, I like to go ahead and stuff the body. You don't want to wait too long because then you're going to be trying to stuff it through a really small hole, and we don't want to deal with that. So just kind of start adding all that stuffing in there. Again, kind of try and push it out to the sides. But obviously we're still not done, so do your best to stuff it right now, and then do round 23, add more if you need to, just keep working. All right, round 23, we're just doing a single crochet and a decrease, repeating it 6 times. Decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease. Oh. Okay. We're gonna move that stitch marker up. Actually, I'm just gonna take it out. All right, and then final round, round 24, we're just doing 6 decreases. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right. Finish it off with a slip knot. Alright, if you want to add a little more stuffing, you can, just it's going to be kind of tight. So you're just going to have to do it in very little sections. Alright, and then I overstuffed the head a little bit on purpose so then I can move some of that stuffing down to the body because I knew it was going to get harder to stuff it fully, so but just keep adding the stuffing until you feel like you've got it. And like I said, I'm going to try and just kind of get it to move. Alright, attaching that yarn tail to a yarn needle, we're going to sew the hole shut. We're going to do this by taking our yarn needle and just threading it through the front loops of all 6 of those decreases in that last round. And then just as you go and you pull gently on it, it'll start to close up. So just slowly close. Perfect. And then I like to just tuck it in and bring it out somewhere else just to kind of secure it in there. And now we have the body of our koala. Next, we're gonna move on to I'm gonna start with the hands because they don't require another color, they're just gray. So we're gonna go ahead and start the 2 arms with our magic ring alternative. And this time we're working 6 single crochets into that magic ring alternative. So 4, 5, 6. All right. And then for the hands, we're just gonna do 4 rounds of 6 single crochets. So I'm not using a stitch marker because it gets really tight, but you can if you want to. So round 2, 6 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then remember to flip your piece. Okay, round 3, 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, round 4, 6 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then round 5, 6 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, and then to finish off the arms, we're just gonna do 3 single crochets across the top. So 1, 2, 3. Leave a small yarn tail for sewing. All right, and we're gonna repeat for a second arm. So again, magic ring alternative, 6 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, and then round 2, 6 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Remember to flip it. Okay, round 3, 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Round 4, 6 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then round 5, 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then finish it off with 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Alright. We're going to go ahead and start on the ears next. So we're going to go ahead and start with our gray. We're going to do our magic ring alternative. And we're going to do 6 single crochets in it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we're going to do 6 increases for round number 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Go ahead and place that stitch marker. Alright, round number 3 is a single crochet and an increase, repeating it 6 times. So single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, and last increase. Okay, move that stitch marker. Now we are going to need our vanilla cream white again for this round, so just keep that handy. We're going to start with round 4 with 7 single crochets with our gray. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then on the 7th one we're going to color change over to our vanilla cream white. Okay. And then we're going to do 4 single crochets with the white. So 1, 2, 3, color change again on the 4th. And then finish with 7 single crochets with the gray. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then like we did on the belly, again, you don't have to, this is just a personal preference of mine. Just tying them. All right, move that stitch marker. Round number 5, we're gonna do 6 single crochets with the gray. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, color change on the 6th. And then we are doing 6 single crochets with the white. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, color change on the 6th. And finish with 6 single crochets in the gray. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, move that stitch marker. And then round number 6, we're going to start with 6 single crochets in the gray. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, color change on the 6th. 6 single crochets with white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, color change on the 6th. 6 single crochets with gray. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, go ahead and just finish off with a slip stitch. And with this one, you are going to need a longer yarn tail for sewing. So just keep that in mind. And remember to cut off the white as well. And then we're just going to repeat for a second ear. Okay. So start with the gray. Magic ring alternative. 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 6 increases for round 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go ahead, whoops, add that stitch marker. Okay, round number 3, we're doing a single crochet and then an increase. We're repeating it 6 times. So single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase. Okay, move that stitch marker. Round number 4, We're going to start with 7 single crochets with gray. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, remember on that 7th, we're going to color change. I forgot about that. Okay, and then we're going to work 4 single crochets with white. 1, 2, 3, and then remember we're going to color change on the 4th. And then we're going to finish with 7 single crochets in the gray. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Remember to flip that piece. Move your stitch marker. I'm going to tie my yarn tails. Again, you don't have to. This is just my personal preference. Especially here, because we're always using these guys for content. Alright, round number 5, we're going to start with 6 single crochets in the gray. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, color change on the 6th. 6 single crochets with the white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, color change on the 6th. 6 single crochets with the gray. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Move the stitch marker. Alright, last round, start with 6 single crochets with the gray. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, color change on the 6th. 6 single crochets with the white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, color change on the 6th. Finish with 6 single crochets with the gray. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Finish with a slip stitch. Remember to leave a pretty decently sized yarn tail. Take that stitch marker out, and you are done with the ears. All right, we're gonna work with our vanilla cream yarn for a second, and we're going to be making the little mouth, the little white mouth piece. So to start this one, we're gonna start with a chain of 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're gonna work in the outer edges of the chain, just on one of the sides of the chain. And we're gonna start with an increase in the second chain from the hook. Increase. And then 2 single crochets, 1, 2, and then an increase in that last one to finish it off. Okay. Leave a little yarn tail for sewing. And there's the mouthpiece. All right, we're gonna go ahead And we are now done with the vanilla cream white. So we're gonna go ahead and grab our phantom black yarn to start on the 2 legs. So we're gonna start with our black, and we're gonna make our magic ring alternative with 6 single crochets in it. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Perfect. Grab a stitch marker. And then we're gonna, for round 2, we're gonna be doing 6 increases. And on this first stitch, the first increase, we're gonna switch back over to the gray. So we're gonna insert our hook, and just like a regular color change, pull up a loop with the black, and then pull through with the gray. And then just remember that we are increasing, so we're gonna do it twice. But first I'm gonna cut off the black so it's not gonna get tangled. So remember to go back into that same stitch that we did the first one. All right, that's the first increase, and now we're just gonna continue around the rest of our increases. So 3, 4, 5, 6. And you should have a little spot of black just because we have one part of the increase that's in black. Go ahead and move that stitch marker up. It should be on the black part to mark it. All right, round 3. We're just doing 12 single crochets. Whoa. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Don't forget to move the stitch marker up and flip your piece. Okay, round number 4, we're just gonna start with 2 single crochets. So 1, 2, and then 4 decreases. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then to finish off the round, we're doing 2 single crochets. 1, 2. Okay. And then I'm gonna just take the stitch marker out at this point just because it gets small, but if you need to leave it in, you can. So I'm just gonna tie these 2 together so that they stay in there, and then tuck them in. Kind of act as a little bit of stuffing before we fully stuff the foot. Okay. So rounds 5, 6, and 7, we're just doing 8 single crochets. So round 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay, and then round 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, round number 7, again 8 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Go ahead and add a little stuffing. Focus it mainly in the little foot. Try and stuff and leave this part a little more unstuffed if you can. And then the decreases are going to be the top of the foot. And you can kind of choose how you want to finish your foot off. If you want to, you can leave this part open, or what I'm going to do is single crochet it shut with 4 single crochets. But up to you. I think it's a little easier to sew them on with the single crochets, but it does give it a different look. So just keep that in mind. All right, so your foot should kind of look something like that with a little black in the circle. All right, grab the black again so that we can start the second leg. So again, magic ring alternative, 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Then remember, we're going to start in the very first increase. We're going to color change over to gray. So I already cut my black off, but you can wait if you need to. So do the first increase by pulling up a loop, and then pull through with the gray. And then we're going to finish the the first increase with the gray. Perfect. And then you can finish the rest of the 6 increases. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. Okay, remember this goes in the one little black spot that we have. Okay, round number 3, we're just doing 12 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12. All right. Remember to flip it. And then round 4, we're going to start with 2 single crochets. 1, 2, and then 4 decreases. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then finish the round with the 2 single crochets. 1, 2. Again, I'm going to go ahead and take the stitch marker out, but leave it in if you need to. Okay. If you want to tie these together, you can. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and finish off the leg with 3 rounds of 8 single crochets. So round 5, 8 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, round 6, 8 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, round 7, 8 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Remember to add some stuffing. Just a little to the foot. You might not need very much, just depending on how long those yarn tails were that you left in there. All right, and then go ahead and finish off with those 4 single crochets if you want to, or you can leave it open. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, you are now done with your Pebble Path gray yarn as well. So now the only color that we need is going to be our Phantom Black, and we're going to be making the nose piece. So depending on how big your koala is, you can choose to make it a little bigger, smaller. This part's kind of up to you. So we're going to start with a chain of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then in that second chain from the hook, we're going to start with an increase. And then we're going to do 2 single crochets. So 1, 2, and then we're going to do 3 single crochets in the next stitch, all in one stitch, 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3. And then you should be to the point where you can flip your piece around. So the spots we just worked were over here, and now we're going to work over here. Then we're going to do 2 single crochets in this side. So 1, 2, and then we're going to finish with an increase. Perfect. All right. And then if you want to stop right here, you can. I'm going to keep going to do like a second around. So we're just going to single crochet around. But only if you want to. You don't have to. Remember the stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is how many you should have. And then I'm just going to finish off with a slip stitch. And then you will need a fairly long yarn tail to sew this on. All right, remember to take your stitch marker out and flip. Okay, now we officially have all of the pieces done for our koala, and we're ready to start sewing. So grab your koala, and I like to start with that nose piece that we just did. Grab your yarn needle. And then basically it's gonna go right there in the middle, and the reason I added that single crochet round is so it sticks out a little bit. And we're gonna move it up. And then I like to take an extra yarn needle and just kind of stick it in, so then that way I don't have to hold it as much. But the top of it is gonna be like right above the eyes. That's kind of where, if you want to, you can move it up another one so it's like in the middle, more like that. It's kind of up to you, but all right. And then you're just gonna start sewing it on. And then as you go, just kind of don't really stretch the nose a ton, just kind of sew right where it's sitting. You don't really need to stretch it flat or anything because we want it to be a little 3D. That's how a koala's nose is. Okay. Just gonna keep going. Oops. You can take this other yarn needle out whenever you're ready. I usually just like to leave it in until I'm all the way done, just to make sure, but. All right. And if you want to add stuffing to it, you can. I'm not going to, but you're welcome to. Your koala, you do what you want. All right. When you're done, go ahead and just kind of stick it in like that. Bring it out somewhere else on the head just to kind of help it stay in a little more. All right. That one's probably the easiest to sew on. Next easiest is gonna be this little mouthpiece, which we're gonna sew on right now. For these ones, the two yarn tails, since they're on the same side, I like to just tie them together, and it just kind of brings it a little more to a point. And then I'm gonna cut the one shorter, and then we're gonna sew it on. All right, so for this, it's just gonna go right underneath the nose like that. If you have 2 yarn needles, you can put one there and then one on the other side. I usually find that helpful just to kind of make sure it doesn't move anywhere. Okay. And then with this little yarn tail, you're just gonna kind of tuck it under. And then just start sewing it on. And you're sewing it to the gray on the koala's head. You're not sewing it to the nose. So keep that in mind as you're going across the top here. Okay, this part's on. I just like to take the yarn needles out for this part, as soon as I get that side in a little bit. Just to kind of help make some more space. Okay. And then you want to kind of bring it down towards the body more. We don't really want it to go out this way. We want it to go down more. Again, you're sewing it to the koala, the head. Alright, and then I just like to come back over, because with the way that it is, this side comes up a little higher than this side. So I like to just kind of grab that very top part of it and just kind of bring it up a little higher on this side, and then just using some of that extra yarn tail, just kind of make it look smooth on the edges. So right. Very good with that. All right. Next, I'm going to go ahead and do the arms. They're probably the next easiest things to place. So as far as the arms go, fairly simple. You just kind of go right underneath the eye. Nothing too crazy, and then they're just going to go right. You're sewing them to this row right above the color changes. Okay. So what I like to do with the arms, so you're kind of doing in one stitch of the color change. So just using the thumb on my non-dominant hand to sew it on, or to hold it on, I just follow those single crochets. So it's fairly easy to sew these on. That's part of the reason why I do the single crochets across the top. It makes it a little easier to sew on than leaving it in a circle. All right. Our first arm is done. On to the second arm. Alright, same kind of thing here. We're starting like one in kind of right below that eye. So again, just using my thumb, hold it in place while my other hand just does the sewing. But again, you can totally use those yarn needles to help you hold it in place if you're new to sewing. It can be a pain in the butt to sew on if you're trying to learn, so take your time. All right, there are the koala arms. All right, next up, let's work on those legs. So as far as the legs go, because of those decreases that we did on them, we want to make sure that we're getting them in the right direction. So on our first leg, you just kind of have to tell, you can tell the single crochets want to curve one way, and we just have to make sure that's the side with the decreases on it. If not, you can totally make it go that way. There we go. Perfect. You want to sew it with the decreases facing up. And we're going to sew it, I like to start it right here. So you're going to go on the same row as that last row of color changes, about 3 stitches into the belly. And then kind of the same thing, just hold it one way. Oops. Perfect. All right. Let's do the other leg. And again, first things first, we just got to figure out which direction. This one's a little bit easier to tell, so you can kind of feel one of them will be a little smoother and cleaner right here. The other one will feel tighter, and that's going to be where the decreases are. So again, we want it to sit about 2 or 3 stitches in, and actually on this one it's going to end right on that corner just because of the way it goes with the I forgot. This one we're sewing this way. You just kind of have to pay attention to which way your leg is going to go for which side you start sewing on. That's why I had to redo it. Perfect. All right. Okay, last but not least is going to be the ears. And I like to do them last just because they are definitely the most challenging part to sew on to our koala. So we're going to grab an ear. Go ahead and attach it to your yarn needle. So for the ears, first of all, we want to figure out which ear this is. So you're going to do that. You're just going to kind of pinch it shut. And then obviously this white part is going to face forward. So that's what we want. And they're going to go kind of up there on the ear, so they're kind of starting like round 2 or 3. Obviously, our yarn is ending right there. So I like to just kind of pinch it shut and just kind of whip stitch it shut right there to get my yarn back up to the top. Now, when we're sewing the ears on, we want to sew them curved, like this. So to do that, we're going to place them, and you're just going to kind of start in one spot, get it attached, curve the ear, and then I like to place my yarn needle in where I want it to end to kind of help hold it in place for me. And then you're just going to start sewing. Now with the ears, it's kind of hard because they're not sewn shut. So as you're going, you have to kind of make sure that you're going on either side and you're going through both spots. Take this out for 2 seconds to make sure I get the right angle in the curve. So when you're sewing it on, there we go. You want to make sure you start here and then you're going to kind of sew it in a curve to make sure that you get it right. So definitely the most challenging part of the whole koala, sewing the ears on. rest of it's not too bad. This part is fun. Alright, and then once you start getting to the point where you're going to pull it back in to create the rest of the curve, you just have to start moving that needle in more as you're sewing. So and pull it tight. That's the other key to sewing the koala's ears on properly. So for the koala ears, we want it to come in a lot more like that. So we're not going to sew it down. We're going to pull it in to finish it off. Because we really want to emphasize that curve in the ear. Okay. And then I like to just kind of make sure that it's not going to go anywhere by just looping it around a couple of times. Oops. We've got a little yarn tail trying to come out the top right there. And this is a great time if you're wanting to sew up this hole on the top. Great time to do it is when you're finishing off the ears. Perfect. Okay. Once you have one ear on, you kind of understand the mechanics of it. It's a little easier to do the second, but the hard part about the second is making it match up with the first. So the ears are just kind of hard to sew on. If you want to, when you're doing it, when you're getting close to finishing it, you can add a couple more single crochets. I think it's 4 to get to this corner, and single crochet it shut, if that's a little easier for you to sew it on. But they're just kind of a challenge. Be patient, your koala will look great. Alright, so again, the first thing we have to do, obviously we figure out this is this side, and we have to whip stitch back to get up to the corner. Alright, so it's a little easier because we can see exactly what row we started it on. So it's right here, and we're just going to follow it to the other side. And then make sure that we're placing it an even amount of stitches past each eye. Right. And then, just like we did before, just sew it on. Again, keep in mind where you're going to be curving it back inwards, because we want to make sure that they are lining up correctly. So just keep that in mind. All right, and then remember that last spot we're going in. We're gonna go in and bring it up. Like that. All right. Once you have the ears attached, you should now have everything on your koala, and the last thing that we're gonna add is embroidering our little smile on him. So go ahead and cut a strip of your Phantom Black. And I will show you how I like to sew or to embroider the mouth. All right. So to start, we're gonna come right here at the bottom of the mouthpiece. We're gonna bring our yarn needle up into here, and I like to do it like up here, this corner, and then you're gonna bring it over to the other corner, and then bring it out like that in the middle. Then pull your yarn needle under and through. Then you're gonna go back in down here, come back out where we went in the first time. All right, cut it off. Tie these two strings together, and because we went in and out of the same stitch, the knot will kind of be able to disappear. But you're gonna take your crochet hook, pull it out of that same spot where the knot is, and force them inside, like so. Once that's done, you can add any adjustments or touch-ups you want. But now you have your cute koala. Thank you so much for watching this Okey Dokeys tutorial. I would love to see your guys' creations, so if you post it on social media, don't forget to tag us at Okey Dokeys Crochet. We'll see you next time.